Hi there, Mark here again. Welcome to this part 2 of my SCA-1E kit build guide, and on the second part we're going to be starting with parts bag D. So the parts in this bag are going to make up the front C-hub steering and the steering links. So I've already pre-prepared the first one, so this is what it's going to look like when you've finished the other side, and we'll just get on and build that now. So with the rest of the parts, and the first thing we need is your drive shaft, wheel axle, and these tiny components here. So you've got a small kind of shaft with a hole in it, you've got a metal spring, and then I've got the two here, but you might just be able to see if I hold it close that there are two pins. You need the longer of the two. It's 1mm longer than the other one, and the shorter one is for the wheel axle. So make sure it's the longer one that you need that's going to go into the CV joint. So it's saying to grease up these parts. I've got some Tamiya AW grease, but any thick grease will do, I think. The first thing we need to do is to get the small stub with the hole in it. That needs to go through the hole in the shaft, like so, with the hole pointing up. You can see that there if it's not quite focused. And then the tricky bit, get the longer of those two little pins or shafts, and we need to push that through the hole in the axle for the CV joint there, and then that has to go through the hole in that other stud that we've put in. Okay, so it should look like this, and then to hold that pin in place we need to get the spring and force that into the groove, and when that pin's in place it should look like that. Okay, so that's that step. On to step 2, and for this you need the C-hub itself, steering hub, and that smaller of the two little pins or shafts, and your two bearings or bushes. Just pop those into the hub. Simply push the shaft through the bearings, push the pin in place through the hole in the shaft, and then push on the wheel hex. Okay, nice and simple. On to step 3. So this part is the other part of the steering mechanism. So push the shaft through, and then you need to get the two kingpins, one in there and one in the bottom, so one in each end, and make sure you don't over tighten these. There's a warning there saying don't over tighten. Make sure it allows the steering to move freely. Yeah, and when you finish you'd have two identical steering mechanisms like this, and then it's on to step D4, where we're going to fit these onto one of the axles. Now the axles you've already prepared are exactly the same, so I don't think it matters which one, but again make sure we get the right alignment with the diagram. So I need the axle facing like so, and then these parts here, the steering arms, need to point backwards, and I think we poke this in here. Just need to align that up with the differential. It slots on quite nicely, and then we've got the two 6mm long button head screws, 3x6s, and there's one that goes in the top hole there, one in the bottom, and repeat for the other side. Okay, so when it's assembled it should look like this, and those were those two screws on each end, and then one there. And again, don't over tighten these. I did find they span quite easily with not too much tension or torque I should say. And just to note, if yours are the same, these are quite tight. I've even backed off these screws slightly and it's still quite tight, so hopefully that will free up a little bit in use. Anyway, we're on to step 5, and we're going to make up the steering drag link. So you need this thick steel bar. It's quite heavy. I've already put the one eye on, and then you've got the other one. There's only the two of these eyelets or eyes, and we'll just screw one on each end of this bar like so. And then we need to put the ball joints in. These ball joints have got a sleeve or a collar on them, and it's important you get them the right way around. So this one is pointing up and the other end is pointing down. This one you need to get your tie rod. First of all, we've got the long 30mm screw. In fact, it screws into that ball joint. Then we've got the second ball joint, just a plain ball joint, no sleeves on that or collars, and a washer. Then this tie rod with the black spacer, that is what the tie rod pivots on. And then we need to put this into the outer hole of the steering mechanism there, and put the nylock nut on the other end. And I think it should end up looking something like that. So now we've got to attach the other end. Again, it's one of those black bushes that fits in from underneath. It's simply 10mm with 3 screw and the washer on top of the tie rod. Screw it into the steering arm. So there's your finished front axle and the end of bag D. So now time to open bag E. This one's really simple. It's just the rear axle assembly. We're just completing that. Basically I've done the one side, so I'll just do the other, show you do both sides the same obviously. So you've got the other axle that you made before. This one now becomes the rear, and I think I've got these parts right. Get the shaft, and first on goes your bushing or your bearing, and then it looks quite thick in the diagram, but there's a really thin shim or washer. It's very, very thin, and I think that just goes over there. That's what was in the bag anyway, and there's nothing else, so it must be that. And then we push this into the outer part of the axle assembly, and it's just the one bearing in there. Very loose fit, but it should all tighten up as we fit it together. And I think then we put the pin through the hole in the shaft and just pop the hex on top of that, and then it doesn't matter which way around it goes, but you simply insert the shaft, turn it until it engages with the diff like that, and then it's just these 2 button screws that go in each hole, and that will be the rear axle finished. So on to bag F, which is the link assembly, or the 4-link assembly. Basically, you get all your metal links out, and you need to screw the eyelets or ball end holders or parts of the ball joints onto each of these. So onto each end, I'm just going to thread all those on now off camera. So those are the 4 lower links, and as you can see I've put the ends on, and I've pressed a ball into each end of those. But for the upper links, as it shows here, you only put the balls, these extended ball ends, in one end of those links. I've done those 2, and again I find the easiest way is just to press down and pop them in like this on the desk or the bench. So that's that one, and then the last one. And there you go, there's all the 4-link assembly finished, and the end of bag F. So on to parts bag G, steps 1 and 2. This is the easiest part of the build because it's already done for you. I think this is just showing you how these parts are assembled, so that you can perform maintenance on these in the future. Just shows you how it all goes together. It does say to put some grease on, so I will do that, but as I say, both those drive shafts are pre-assembled in the factory. So swiftly on to parts bag H. Here's all the parts, and we're going to assemble the gearbox now. So let's get these parts ready. So the first thing to do is get the bigger of the 2 metal gears and just pop a bearing in each side, and then we've got this small bar, steel bar, that just pushes in there nice and snugly, which is good, like so. This one's a bit trickier. We've got two bearings to go onto this spindle or bar. Note there's a hole in it. I think that needs to have the very small pin through there, that very short pin. And this gear has got a recess that that pin goes into, so I think what we need to do is get this on like that with that slot at the top. Push that tiny pin into the hole and then offer that up and make sure it's fitted into the slot. Then what we need to do is to get this little black circlip, and that will hold this in position. Yep. Okay, so that's in place now. Just simply put one of your bearings on each end of that shaft, and that's step one. I've got the parts for step two. Make sure that you get these 2.5mm screws for this step, and not the 3mm screws. They are slightly different, obviously, by 0.5 millimeter. So make sure they're the smaller ones. They need to go into these little holes in the case here. So what we need to do first is get these 15/833 spacers. That needs to fit into there, and also one into the other side of that case. Then you need to get your diff output shaft, and that needs to slip through that hole with the bushing in it that you've just put in. And then you've got the metal diff locker that we need to fit in there. Just need to rotate that so it slips on. Okay, and then this side you need to put that output shaft in again, and then fit the two halves together. This is where we need to get lined up and get these 4 2.5mm thick screws in place. It does say here ream the hole a little, but I don't think we actually need to. Let's have a go. Now that seems to be going in okay without reaming that hole out, so I'm just going to put all 4 in. So taking that lock diff that you've just finished, we need to move on to step 3, where we're going to fit these into the case. And there's no mention of putting any grease on these gears, but I am going to. It makes logical sense really to put some grease on all of these, so that's what I'm going to do. Just checking I've got the right screw. It says 16mm, which is this one, which looks like this has to go through the case and into the motor mount or the motor plate, through that hole from the inside, I think you can see there, and that's showing to screw into this hole here. Okay, so I think that's how it goes anyway, like that. Fit that diff in there. Then we've got the idler gear that we made earlier, like so. And then the assembled shaft with the bearing on, it goes in like so. Yep, that makes sense. So I'm just going to get some grease on all of this before I put the other side on. And with that all greased up, I should be able to fit the other side of the case. Yep, and then we've got this sleeve 15/860, which is this plastic piece, and I think that slots in there, and that's the spacer then for this long screw that's got to go in, that will then secure to the motor plate. And sure enough, that does locate into there, into the plate. Another 35mm screw then next to that one we've just put in, that's going to go also into that screw into the plate. Okay guys, lots of head scratching just been going on. I've been away for a while, not that you'll know on the video, but I can't find these parts. This 15860, that part there that looks like it's got a colour on it, that just isn't in bag H. The only parts I've got is this washer. I've got this plastic piece here that's just a flat plastic spacer type thing, and there's no other reference to that. I've got another one of these metal collars that I think is the same that went in to the lock diff here. So there's another one of those, and I've got a lock nut. So basically I can't find that. I'm going to have to use this piece and assume that that's the one that I need, because there is nothing else supplied. So this is that long 40mm screw. I'm going to put that spacer on there instead of that collared piece that looks to be there. Okay, like I said, so that plastic piece is going on there. And push that through, and again that's going to screw into the motor plate. On to step 4, which is putting the slipper clutch on. Again, not sure about these parts. I think this is the only piece that's going to fit it, as I said, so that's going to go on the shaft there. Then we've got part of the slipper clutch itself goes on, like so. Then you've got to put these like washers, felt washers, which are the slipper clutch itself, put those in place on your spur gear and put it all together. Okay, that seems to be about right. And then we've got the spring which goes on, and then it's got this, looks like a top hat kind of shaped 15867. Again, I haven't got one of those. All I've got is this bright washer, so that's going to have to do for now. And finally fit on the nylock nut. Okay, so that's the slipper clutch fitted as best I can now. I wasn't happy with that part that went at the back here, this one that goes and fits inside the motor plate there. So I've looked in my spares box and found this bushing. It's a Tamiya brass bushing, and that fitted nicely over that shaft and into that slot there, into that hole. So I've fitted that instead. It seems to be okay. Time will tell. Yeah, that seems alright, so we'll move on to the next step, which is step 5, fitting the motor, the pinion and the motor cover. Okay, so that's the motor fitted. There's the two 8mm screws that go in there, and that's it. And then you just put your pinion on and try and set the mesh of the gears as best you can. Looks okay, it's not binding. Yeah, so I think that'll do for that. So all we've got to do now is put the cover on with the two much smaller 6mm cap screws, which fit in one in there and one in there. Strangely, this doesn't seem to line up centrally, that shaft there with the hole, but hey, that's the way it goes on. So that's that finished. All we've got to do is step 6 and 7. Step 6, we've got to put on these extra parts here, which are these, and we're using 8mm long M3 screws, and noting the orientation of this piece with this piece, and then this just goes into those two holes there on the gearbox case. It should look something like this when you've done it, and all we need to do now is to put the prop shafts on. And yes, another problem found with it fitted with the shaft the way it shows here, with the non-movable part here and the movable part to the outside, this doesn't fit. It's because it fits this way round, and these cups are different. This has got a little kind of lip on it, and that fits on, but it looks like, I said this was the easiest part to assemble because it was already done in the factory. It looks like it was done wrong, so we've got the wrong ends on each end of the shafts. So I'm now going to have to disassemble these and swap the ends over. So just to confirm before I make these changes, I've gone to the page where it shows the prop shafts or drive shafts, and hopefully you can see from this, it shows this end, the thicker end, that part has got that step on it, and as you can see, that's been assembled on this end, which shouldn't have the step on it. So I'm just going to reassemble it. Okay then, with that rectified, we can get on with fitting these drive shafts to the main gearbox output, which is here. So what we need to do is make sure you've got the cover on the left, and then you want the longer of the two drive shafts. Make sure you get the threaded hole pointed towards you and the plain hole at the back, and then we need to get that onto the output shaft there. Then you want your grub screw with that plain shaft at the end, and the thread right by the head, and a bit of thread lock on the thread, and that's the one side, the long side fitted, and same again for the short side. Okay, with that step done, that's the end of bag H, and I think that's a good point to call a halt to this part 2 of the build guide. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for following along, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.